Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody's having a pleasant Friday. We're going to be discussing counter offers today because I guess we've been having a lot of questions arise on the counter offers, and we've been having some issues. So some of this is going to be redundant for those who are seasoned, but if this session could bring any value to any agents, then we've achieved what we wanted to and stuff. And I'm also going to go over a little spreadsheet that I put together so that you can educate your buyers, your potential buyers, even fallout buyers that have kind of paused in today's market due to the increase in rates, because with the price homes dropping, it actually comes out even beneficial to them in the years to come to buy right now versus the amount that they're going to be paying per month versus the savings that they're going to be saving with the price that they'll potentially buy for that same house that went for about, let's just say $50,000 or $100,000 more 6 months ago and stuff. But we'll go over that afterwards. To start, we just want to go over a little bit on the counter forms. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask. If not, we'll have a Q&A afterwards, and then we can go from there. Okay, so let me share the screen now. So I prepared a little purchase sample or example. I put myself and my wife as a purchaser, just so we can have the process with an actual buyer and seller. This is an actual property that is for sale right now. So let me go to. It would go. Yeah.
There we go.
I have Michelle here with me.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Michelle. Good morning.
So, Michelle, to go to our presentation, we would have to go to documents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's not the one I wanted to. So this is the transaction, right?
You have to move the screen down and go to all forms.
Gotcha.
There you go.
Okay.
All forms
Let
over
me go
there.
back to the other one though. It's
Okay.
this one right here.
Mhm. And then
Okay.
all forms.
Got it.
And it'll
So going over, just to start, I do want to let everybody know that when you do when you start your process, I recommend going through this whole cover sheet, because when you put in all the information on this cover sheet, it's going to populate onto all your forms. So it's going to make it a lot easier and less redundant for you to put in all that information. But I do believe that this is the wrong one. Let me go back to the other one. 20 minutes just now. This one here. Okay, there we go. So we're not going to go over the residential purchase agreement right now. We'll do that at another time. But I just wanted to show you, by putting in all your information on your cover sheet, it'll automatically populate all this information, so you don't have to be doing it redundantly, going from the other angle and stuff. And then I went ahead and put in all this information previously, so I didn't have to do it during this whole process. So here's the purchase agreement. I put some information in there. I put the purchase price as $1 million with 30-day escrow, $30,000 as deposit, all your basic information. We're going to add a different training. We're going to go into all these little topics right here, all the sections and stuff, so everybody understands. But for now, I just wanted to briefly go over the RPA so you guys can see what I filled in to get to the counter offers. So as you can see, even when you fill in the cover sheet and also go through the route of the template for CBGR, it'll automatically come up with a document fee right here for the $295. So it's embedded in your RPA. We're still going to get the addendum, but at least you have that in the RPA, so you won't have any issues with escrow and or the lender having it paid too. So that's a very important tool right there as well. See, I also put the Coldwell Banker George Realty addendum as well. So it's just another layer of that you can put in there. And then I went ahead and added an addendum to this contract just for the sake of future training. But you can see, so I'm not going to get into depth about the RPA. We're going to go straight into the counter offers. So let's go into that. So the first counter offer we would get was if we're making a purchase, what do you call it?
The seller would, if you're
Right.
the buyer's agent, the seller's gonna
Right.
provide a
Counter offer number one.
yeah, seller counteroffer one.
So let me go to documents. Where do we go to documents, Michelle?
Go back and it should have populated.
Oh, it's going to be at the bottom. Huh? Okay.
There you go.
So when you make an offer for your buyer, the first counter offer is going to be obviously from the seller. They're going to counter back, and it's going to be actually counter number one, and then they're going to obviously date it when they prepared it, which would be 7/22. So actually, this is going to be based off of the purchase agreement, and whatever it's dated, it's probably going to be dated today, and they're off. If they did the seller counter offer, it would be dated for today as well, but let's just put 7/23. Now, the seller's going to respond saying, they want, I actually have a set of them. Let me go back into the other transaction. We'll look at documents. Counter offer. Actually, it's not there either, huh?
That's okay. Now you just show them the buyer counteroffer that
Okay,
follows.
now let's go back to this. Sorry, guys, I wasn't prepared as I'm still learning all these documents as well.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. So when you get the seller's counter offer, they're going to come back with all the terms that they are requesting you to change from the offer that you made. One thing you should know that if the items that they put exceeds the lines here, it's going to automatically go into an addendum. It's called a TOA. It's called a transfer over addendum. So that way you'll have all the items on one page. Also on the counter offers, if you notice on section D right here, they could also attach an addendum there, or also indicate that they're accepting a backup offer, or seller license, so that, or sellers to remain in possession. That's an SIP form. That is indicating that the seller is going to stay in the premises for 29 days or sooner after the close of escrow. If it is going to exceed 29 days, you're going to need to do a lease, a residential lease after sale, which is 30 days or more. So these are little check boxes that the seller will indicate that's attached to the counter offer. At the very bottom right here is where the information is, where the seller is going to indicate how long the buyer has to sign the counter offer and to proceed. And then obviously at the very bottom, that's the acceptance of the counter offer by the two buyers. That in this case, it's myself and my wife. So after this, the buyers will get this presented from the real estate agent that presented the offer, which is in this case us, and then it would go to a buyer counter offer number one. So if you are going to respond to the seller wanting to ask for a change in the seller's counter offer, you would counter back as buyer counter offer number one. And that is going to be the counter offer to the seller's counter offer number one. Okay. And that's also going to be today's date, or the date that you guys prepare it. And then this date over here is going to be the date of the actual counter offer that you're countering back on. And then this is just the basic information. Again, when you're responding to the counter offer, you're not responding to any other document but the counter offer from the seller. If you exceed these lines right here, then it's going to actually go into an addendum. It's called a TOA. So don't be worried about not having enough room. It'll automatically populate a different form, which is called a TOA. Following that, the expiration right here is going to be the same thing. So you're going to be sending this to the sellers, giving them adequate time to respond. If you do not check any of these time frames right here, it's going to just automatically go to the designated 3 days at 5 o'clock from the date of this document. Okay. And then again, on the bottom, this is where your buyers would sign, sending the counter offer number one to the seller's counter offer number one. At the very bottom right here, if the seller, if the seller accepts all of this and doesn't change anything, they would sign this and then it would be accepted. If they check this box here, that means that they're accepting it, but they are going to change. They're asking something. They're asking more from the buyer. We're wanting different terms. So if that is done, then what the buyer is going to get, the seller is going to send is a seller counter number two. It's the same form, except up here, it's going to say seller counter offer number two, and that's going to be to the buyer's counter offer number one. And then again, hopefully, you don't get to a point where you're countering offering, number 4 or 5 or 6, and you guys come to an agreement previous to that. But there are cases that, it's going to keep going back and forth until finally, everybody comes to a decision. So it's just important to remember that you're going to go from counter offer, the seller in this case, because it's we're starting off with a purchase agreement and we're representing the buyers. It's going to go from a seller's counter offer number one to a buyer's counter offer to the seller's counter offer number one. And then if the seller counter offers are counter offer number one, it's the seller's counter offer number two to the buyer's counter offer number one, and then so forth. So it's 1 1 2 2 3 3 4 4. Pretty basic. I just wanted to go over that because we were having, a few calls from agents asking how they were confused about how it works and what's the protocol here. Again, it's not that valuable for certain agents, but it is helpful for some. So as time goes by, we want to go through all the forms so everybody understands all the forms. Next week, we're going to be going over the request for repairs, which is kind of similar to this. It's back and forth, but we wanted to go over the counter offer so that everybody understands the process and stuff. Does anybody have any questions regarding that? It's pretty basic, but if you have any questions, feel free. No? Okay. So if you do have questions afterwards, feel free to call us and we'll help you out, get you through it. So for now, what I'm going to go into is another little item that I put together that hopefully this is helpful for you, for all our agents. Let me go ahead and bring that up. Okay, the first, can everybody see that? All right,
Are you still
Well-
with the counter offer, Ruben?
I'm
Your
sorry.
screen is still shows seller counter offer number 2. Is that the one that you want to show?
I'm sorry, say that again, Peter.
Still shows a seller content offer number 2. Is that what you want to show to?
No, it should be an Excel spreadsheet. Is that what you guys seen?
No.
Yeah, so we're having some issues here with Excel. You guys, nobody sees my Excel spreadsheet?
No, Ruben, still the seller counter offer number 2.
Yeah.
Okay, let me see what I can, I don't know why it's not. Let me try, I'm gonna stop sharing and I'll share again. How about now?
Yeah.
Okay, so I put together a little spreadsheet. I'm gonna try to explain this as best as possible, going into the next pages. This is basically just today's rates. Right here, it's a conventional conforming loan, which the max loan amount is $647,200. I'm going to do the scenario going into the next page is based off an 80% LTV, which would give you no PMI, and with a 740 FICO score based on a single family residence. Any loan over $647,200 what is automatically going to, it's going to be considered a high balance loan. That max loan is $987,000. The rate today for that is roughly about 7.75, give or take, depending on the points or no points. Anything over that amount up to about 3 million, it's called a super jumbo. That rate's about 6%. I put 6.25 just to cushion it a little bit, but about 6.25 or 6% today. So this is like the conforming loan limits. Reason why I bring this up, it's very important to understand, because if, and I'll go into this. So if the property, let's say a property in January, February, or March was going for $1 million, it's very possible now that that same property is going to be going for, in this scenario, I'm going to be putting 950, which is 50,000, which is not a whole lot. I'm even seeing some properties drop 200,000 in sales price. So the time of the sellers wanting or getting over asking and over the appraised value, I think those days are there might be some instances that are still around, you know, in the more desirable areas, or if the house is really desirable. It all depends on how much the buyer really wants it. But for the most part, the sellers are getting what it's worth, and in some cases even less than what it's worth. So I'm giving this scenario based off, if you see the date right there on March 1st, 2022, when the rates were roughly about 4.5. You can't get that rate anymore, even if you bought points. But it's a good scenario to base this off of. So based off of $1 million, putting 20% down with a loan amount of 800,000. So again, 800,000 is going to be a high cost loan. So you'd probably be looking right now, you'd probably be looking in like the low to mid fives. Your borrower, based off of that rate, would be paying about $51.95 in total housing expense. That means your principal, interest, taxes, and your home insurance. Over the life of 5 years, here's the months you'd be your borrower would be paying roughly about $311,000. Now, if you add the down payment that they put down, so the total out of pocket in year 5 would be $511,000. Does that make sense to everybody? All right. If you have any questions, let me know, but it's pretty basic, right? Okay. So this next page, I put buyer on hold scenario, okay? This is the same scenario that I just went over right now. And I color coded all the others just so you guys can kind of differentiate all these scenarios. This scenario in gray is based off right now, real time, okay? So you see where it went from a 4.5, right now it's a 5.5. We're all feeling it. All the buyers out there are saying, shoot, you know, it was a 4.5 when I started. It was a 3.5 when I first started looking for a home. Now it's a 5.5, and then it's going to go to 6.5. And I mean, potentially we're going to be in the 7s. Let's just be realistic here, you know? That being said, the Feds will discuss a rate hike, and they're going to announce it next week. And I am anticipating at least 3/4 of a point. So the rates will go into the high 6s next week. So in this scenario right here, I was very, very, I didn't do it drastically. I only reduced it by $50,000, okay? But realistically, I think this price of $1 million, you would be able to get for 900,000 right now. But let's just be very conservative, and the sales price is 950 now. So right there, right off the back, they're saving 50,000. Okay. There's their down payment, and then this is their payment based off today's rates. So it's about $200 more from March to July. So from your buyer not finding a home or waiting, his payment increased $200 in the same scenario, but with the price reduction of 50,000. So in this instance, over the life of 5 years, they've paid out 514,000. So look at the difference. It's about $3,000 difference. It's not a whole lot. So they're still in a good shape, considering that they're getting the same house that they were looking for a little bit cheaper. So after 5 years, let's just say, I'm going to be very conservative here too. After 5 years, let's just say we can get back into the 4.5 interest rates, which I think is reasonable, given that where our economy is headed right now and the length of recovery. So let's just say in 8 of 2027, their loan amount is going to be roughly about, let's say, 740. They're not going to reduce their principal that much. So they bought the house. They had a first loan amount for 760. Now their new loan to refinance is going to be 740. Okay, let's just say a projected rate of 4.5. Right now, again, nobody has a crystal ball. So what you're going to disclose to your potential buyer is that this is just an example of what could happen, but nobody has. I mean, it could be 3.5. We don't know, or it could stay in the 5s or in the 4s. But this is just to give an example. But even without refinancing, you see this. It's not that big of a difference. 511 to 514. Obviously, they're going to be paying $200 more. So as the years pass, they will eventually be paying more if they don't refinance and if they keep that loan for the entire term. But let's be realistic. Most people do not stay in their home for 30 years and they buy another home, upgrade, or refi. Most of them refinance within the first 5 years. So this is realistic, okay? This is not far-fetched at all. Once they refinance, right? Let's just say at a 4.5. This would be their new payment, $48.38. That's a savings of $566 monthly. Okay, so let's that's the savings monthly. On the property part, I just put a conservative 10% increase in value, okay? So that's an increase from the value that they bought, which is 950. So now their home is worth 1,045, because I don't think, especially in our market, we're not going to see our values dip like in other parts of the United States. We have a unique demographic area, and especially in Los Angeles County. So I don't think we're gonna, if we do see a dip, it's gonna recover pretty rapidly, in my opinion. Okay, that's just my opinion. But there's your possible value. Okay, so your possible equity would be $305,000. That's in 5 years. 5 years. Okay, I mean, understand that you put 190,000 into that equity, but you're still coming up with a pretty good equity. That's a pretty good return. With those savings on a monthly basis for the following 5 years, your buyer, this is what your buyers would be saving. The first 12 months of the refinance, they'd be saving roughly about 7,000. And then you just go 24, 36, 48, and 60 months. So after the first 5 years, their savings just in refinancing would be about $34,000 in this scenario. Okay. Now, I put this, the next one would be the grayscale that I prepared, is preparing ourselves for the next interest rate. Okay. Because let's be realistic, the rates are going to go up. They're not going to stay at 5.5. So let's just say 8/22/2022, next month, we're looking at 6.5, or even next week. Okay, I just put a date there just as a scenario. So that same house that you got for $1 million, let's just say you can get it for 850. It's possible. I mean, I'm seeing that happen a lot to a lot of these homes that were overpriced. Price reduction 100,000. Or let's just say they just be realistic and they're not looking for $1 million. They go down to about 850. Or even if you do 900, I can change these all day long. See, and it changes everything. But let's just do 850 for now, right? Because it's still beneficial for them to buy a property versus renting. I didn't have time to do how much money they'd be throwing away based on the rent factors and how much they're putting into, into the rent expense. But it's going to be pretty good chunk of change because, in LA County, rents are pretty expensive, and they're getting more expensive because the competition is getting more fierce because there's a lot of buyers on hold or falling out. So if you can contact those buyers that were looking to buy in late last year, early this year, or just recently, explain to them the benefit of buying right now, even though the rates are higher. Of course, they have to qualify for the loan, but if they can qualify and they can, pay that higher rate right now, in the long run, it's going to benefit them because they're getting the properties for a substantial discount, or not necessarily a discount, but a lower price, a more reasonable price. So right off the bat, they're going to be in a good situation because that rate is not forever, but that price that you paid for that home is forever. You can't go backwards on that. You could always refinance, but you can't buy the home again. So based on this scenario, not to take too much of your guys' time, the same scenario, 850 with the same rate, or actually a 6.5, the housing payment would be 5283. Okay, so look at the difference. So someone that was looking for $1 million that can potentially get a similar home for 850. So a house that sold that was going for $1 million in February, March, it's reasonable to say that you can get a similar house for 850 right now, I think, or even 900. It's not going to change that much. Look at the difference in payment. It's $100, so it's not that much. Again, if they can qualify over 5 years, that's how much they're going to be paying, $487,005. That's including their down payment. Okay, Keep in mind also, when you pay for a lower sales price, your tax liability is going to be less too. So look at the difference from March of this year, when they were paying $1 million for a home at a 4.5, their total out of pocket for the next 5 years is 511. At a 6.5, which would probably be next month or next week or next month, they're lower. Even if I put 900,000 here, whoops, that's 9 million. They're still at 500. They're less out of pocket. So yeah, their monthly payment's going to be higher, but they're paying less for the home. So that's what you really have to explain to them. Let me go back to that so I can finish this. So when they refinance, a potential refinance in year 5 after they've been in the home at projection of 4.5, right? Their new housing payment is going to be 42.28.42. Their home insurance and their taxes will not change. The only thing that will change is the principal and interest. So they could potentially save $1,000 monthly after that refinance, giving them a total possible value with a moderate 10% increase in value from 850 to 935. That's not a lot of money. I mean, that's very reasonable in year 5. Their possible equity is 295. Of course, they put 170 down payment into that equity, but they're still gaining about $120,000 in equity. So their savings would be about $65,000 after year 5, after they refinance. Again, this is just an example. It's not set in stone, but it's an example that you can use for a projection. Now, finally, let's just say in October, we're going to be at a 7.5, okay? Which is, I think that's where we're going to be headed at. So your potential buyers have to be prepared for this type of rate, as do you. But let's just say at a 7.5, at a 750 purchase price, right? Their down payment's only going to be 150 now versus what they're putting 200,000 down there. And their loan amount 600. Their payment's going to be $5,000. So that, see, from March at a 5,200 to right now they're paying 54, and then 6.5 they'd be paying 52, and at 7.5, which is where we're headed, they're going to be paying $5,000. Of course, if they want to go to 800,000 or 900,000 and get more house, because I think realistically, in October of this year, that 750 right there is going to be pretty close to the $1 million that was selling in March, in my opinion. If not, let's just say, even if they go to 850 at a 7.5, they're still going to be in pretty good shape. So the total housing would be $5,000, right? Their total out of pocket would be 554. That's with their payments over 5 years and their 150 down payment. So look at the difference. It's not bad at all. Even if they were to buy 850, right, in October, oops, they're still at 480. Obviously, the payment would go up a little bit. Let's just even say we'll add that. So they're at 5380. They're a little bit higher, right? But they're still at 492. So they're still in really good shape. Let me just put that back just for my equations. And then this one would be, that's right. So, and then if they refinanced after 5 years, I'm putting here a forecast of November in 2027 with their loan amount of 560. Their potential savings on a monthly basis would be 1558 on a monthly basis. Their potential value would have been increased to 825 at a moderate 10% increase. So they bought the house for 750. Now the value of the home is 825, and their possible possible equity would be 265. Now, obviously, they put again 150 down, but they still have about 165 in equity that they gained. Versus what? Versus renting and and just putting that money into someone else's pocket. After 5 years of refinancing, their potential savings would be 100 grand. So you can add that 90, or let's just 94,000. You can add that 94,000 to the equation, and then now they're saving a whole lot more. So obviously it is beneficial for a buyer not to hold on and try to buy, but instead of looking for that $1 million that he was qualified for and ready to purchase in March, you know, talk to your buyers and tell them, look, show them these scenarios. If you guys want me to need help with these scenarios on a one-on-one basis, I can do that. I could portfolio it, cater towards your clients so they can understand. But right now that it's slow, the downturn, you know, try to reach out to those potential clients that fell out or that are on hold still because they want to see where the rates are at. Tell them not to be scared of the rates. The rate is something that you can fix. You can't fix the price that you paid for your home. So if that potential buyer was looking to purchase something for $1 million early this year and just got spooked out of the market because of the rates right now are 5.5, they're going to go to 6.5 and potentially 7.5. I think that's where we're going to head to, like the sevens, mid sevens, even high sevens. But if they can qualify and they're prepared to pay a little bit more on a housing payment for a great outlook over 5 years, this is going to give them a good eye to say, okay, look, let's get back in the market and see what's available for 750 or 850 instead of $1 million. You know, the market's changing. It's kind of leveling out towards the buyers and sellers. I'm seeing even credit towards buyers closing costs. I think there's going to be more inventory out there, so there's going to be more to choose from. So that $1 million home that they were looking for early this year, they can probably find a comparable one, you know, in the next month or two. They just have to be prepared to pay a little bit more on the interest rate. So does anybody have any questions regarding this before we get to the next topic?
Ruben?
Yes.
Yeah, I think your Excel sheet is excellent in analyzing the situation. Although I don't think that the 15% decrease in price of the next month is realistic.
Okay.
And actually, the California Association of Realtors did not anticipate any much reduction in price, especially in California, because of the housing shortage. But they are thinking that the price of the house will slow down. It will not appreciate as much as like, you know, a few months ago. But nevertheless, your comment that you know, the price of the house you cannot change, but the interest rate you can always change. Even if you buy the price of property at a high level, yeah, and get into a higher interest rate, you can always refinance, you know, several years later with you know, if the condition of the market condition changes, and then you can get into a lower interest rate, you can always refinance. So it's not you know, once in all time deal for the interest rate. Keep in mind though, you know, that when you have the fixed interest rate, you lock in the fixed interest rate, there's a prepayment penalty associated with it with what most of the fixed interest rate loans. And so for the first 5 years, you probably cannot refinance without penalty. but nevertheless, that's options that you can still have, in adjusting the interest rate.
Well, if this is a primary residence, it's illegal to put a prepayment penalty on the loan. So if it's an investment property,
Yeah.
they'll probably give you about a 2-year prepayment penalty, not
Right.
5. That's they don't allow that anymore. But if this buyer is looking to buy a home to live in, there is no prepayment penalty. It's against the
Yeah,
law.
that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, if you're buying a property, for primary residence, it's much better. Mhm.
But
Okay.
but Peter, even in the case where from a 4.5 to a 5.5 with a $50,000 reduction in price, which is not a whole lot, you're still looking at your total cash out of pocket. So there's two things to think about here. A lot of buyers are just rate conscious, and I understand that. That's the first thing they ask, what's the rate? But that at the end of the day, the rate just determines your payment and how much you're going to be paying over the life of the loan. But when buyers get spooked, in my experience, when they see how much they're paying over 30 years. Let's be realistically, how many people have kept their home for 30 years? It's and without refinancing or upgrading or anything, it's not realistic. And you have to let your buyers know. I understand that's what you're looking at, but you're not going to stay in this loan for 30 years or stay in this home for 30 years. But even in the short term of 5 years, right? Peter, let me ask you, in your opinion, $1 million home that was selling for a home that was selling for $1 million early this year, it's very, very reasonable that same home, if it's on the market still, that's going for $950 now, right?
Theoretically, yes, but realistically, probably not, because the price is still holding up pretty well in California.
Well, I've seen quite a bit of reductions. I mean, I'm not saying right here in like the LA city or surrounding cities, but like in areas where I have buyers looking, like in Upland or Claremont and stuff. But nonetheless, even if I put $1 million here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whoops. Look at the difference over 5 years of how much they're paying.
Yeah, right. You're right. I definitely agree with you. Yes.
It on a monetary basis, it's not a whole lot of difference, and it gets them in the home that they want versus, because what's the downfall to this, Peter? How much do you think people are on average are paying in rent?
Yeah, the rent is that's another factor you have to consider.
Right?
The rent is really spiking up because of shortage. So yeah, that's another thing that you have to consider as well.
Yeah, if someone's paying, let's just say, if someone's paying, let's just be realistic, $4,000. That's a pretty reasonable, amount, right, Peter?
$4,000, a little high,
$4,000.
but it's possible. Depends on
Yeah.
what kind of house do you want to rent.
Well, what's a reasonable price that you want me to input here?
Well, for two bedrooms, rent is about 2,700. 3-bedroom about 3,000.
All right, let's just put a 2-bedroom, right? So there's the annually what you're going to be your buyer is going to be potentially losing, and then look at after 5 years. That's the number right there.
Yeah.
When you show that number to your buyer after 5 years, that's how much money you paid into your rent instead of into your own home. That's going to open up their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
This number right here, it's reasonable. It's reasonable. The buyer looks at it like, okay, well, I'm paying $2,700 in rent right now. So okay, so now I'm going to go up to $5,500. But look at what you're paying over 5 years. That's gone. You
Yeah.
can't write it off. you know, it's like putting it in the trash. So why not invest into a property and not pay this rent? You know, and you also have to let them know that the principal and interest is a write-off. So that's going to help them with their taxes as well. So, I mean, this is not going to convince every buyer by all means, but it might convince one or two. So, you know, if you have the time and you have buyers that have, you know, fell out of the market, reach out to them. Give them this presentation. It might convince them. It might not, but you have the time. Or if you have a buyer that's on hold, you know, give them some information more on that will help them just turn that corner and say, okay, let's go actively and look and move forward and stuff. You know, so this is just a tool, you know, for you agents just to understand and you know, get that one piece of the market, which is those buyers that are on hold, because there's a lot of them on hold right now. There's a lot of buyers that are waiting to see what's going to happen. Buyers that are just, you know, even buyers that were so frustrated 1 year ago from today because they were getting outbid by 100 grand or 200 grand. This was happening 1 year ago during the pandemic. So their lease is up in 12 months, or maybe their lease is up in another 2 months or 3 months. We don't know. But unless you pick up that phone and you call them and ask them, hey, you know, John, so are you interested in getting back into the market? I understand the rates are a little higher, but the market's softening. We don't have the competition, the fierce competition that we had, you know, a year ago. You know, you could always refinance, but I think, you know, it's a good time to look, you know, that person, you could have been that one agent that called them back and now you have a buyer. So don't cut yourself short. Call these buyers up. You know, all it takes is what, a 2-minute call. Either they're gonna say, yeah, I'm interested. Send me some information. Send me what's out there or whatever. Or they say, you know what, I'm not interested. Okay, I'll give you a call, you know, a couple months from now or 6 months from now. So it's just, it's part of prospecting, you know, it's one part of prospecting, you know, it's in this scenario, it's just the buyers that are on hold or the buyers that fell out. You know, these buyers also are going to be frustrated nowadays because they can't get a place to rent. So they have to either pay more in rent or they have to go back into the buying market. So if you need this tool personalized, let me know. I'll be more than happy to help you out. Again, this is not a scenario that's going to be for everybody, but if it can potentially get you 1 or 2, you know, more prospects or clients, you know, it did its job, you know. Does anybody have any questions?
I think it's an excellent tools for the agents, Ruben. So maybe you can send to the agents your format for this Excel sheet,
Okay.
and you know, can all use it. That's good.
I'm going to fine tune it, and I'm going to include some rental factors too, as to how much they will rent and how much they will pay over the life of 5 years, so
Yeah.
they can do the comparison stuff.
And also that would be beneficial is Ruben, is to include the qualification factor. You know, like say with certain interest rate, how much income do you have to qualify?
Okay.
You know, that kind of stuff. So that, yeah, so that if the client asks the agent, you know, I have a job, I got paid so much, and so what kind of level of house can I buy at this point with a certain interest rate? You know, that kind of scenario would be helpful also.
I'm going to include what Peter's asking for the qualifying, the income qualifications for the household. When I say household, is whoever is applying for the loan. Okay, so it could be 1, 2, 3, or 4 people, but the total income needed to qualify for this loan. But you have to remember that this is going to be based off of a zero debt scenario, because I don't know how much their car payments are, their credit cards or so forth. So the total income needed to qualify, that's going to be based solely on their housing expense. So if they have credit cards, car payments, which most people do, you have to take that into consideration. So I urge every agent to have your buyers consult a loan officer of their choice or your choice prior to showing them houses. Make sure that they qualify. Again, I will include the income for them to qualify, but that's going to be based solely on this number, which is based on a total, not just a housing payment, that's going to be their total outgoing expense. So if they have a car payment for $500 and then they have credit cards for 200, you have to take that in consideration. So it's going to lower their qualifications, or they're going to need more income to compensate for those additional debts. So Peter, I will include the income qualifications, but again, it's going to be based on the housing expense, not because every buyer is going to be different. I don't know what other expenses they have, but again, the proper way to do it is contact, we have in-house lending here. They have a lot of time on their hands right now because of the rates. So anything you need to help your buyers qualify, contact them. Even if we'll get into this at another meeting, but even if your borrowers, even if you think that your buyers do not qualify and they say, oh, I have bad credit or I don't earn enough, let the professionals do their work and let them get qualified. I have a mortgage background, and you'll be surprised how many clients that I started with in the beginning of the year that had a 520 FICO score and had some issues with collections and whatever. If they can qualify with their income, everything else can get fixed. I have someone that does credit repair that is very good, fast too. I wouldn't say he's inexpensive, but he gets the job done. He did it for me personally as well, so I can say firsthand that it does work. But I've seen borrowers with like a 520 FICO score. After 6 months, they're in the mid sixes. That's a whole different ball game for them to be qualified and get into a better program. So don't cut yourself short, or don't do a disservice to your clients by just waving off those clients that have bad credit. Let the professionals do what they do. Send their info. If they're eager and they want to buy, that's all you need to know. And the loan officers will guide them on where they need to be, what they need to do to get prepared for home ownership. So with that, I'll just ask if anybody has any questions. I'll fine tune this and I'll send it out. It's also being recorded too. But if anybody has any questions, I'll feel free to ask. No? Okay.
No, that's really good. It's me, Oscar.
Hey, Oscar.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That's really, really interesting because I don't think too many agents use this approach.
Yeah, it's an approach that lenders use a lot, just to have potential home buyers understand. Again, your buyers have to understand that this is an investment. What does an investment mean? That you're investing something into get something in return. So you're investing into a property, for a certain amount of years or for life to get the return. The return is going to be obviously the benefits of having a write-off and equity and home ownership, and eventually possibly even retirement, because that, they can upgrade and use this as a rental. Once it's paid off, then, they can use it as retirement. There's a whole number of things, how you can use this properties as investment. So, or benefit for your investment, retirement or otherwise. So, Peter, you want anything to add before we conduct this?
No, I mean, it's pretty, we covered it pretty well, and
Okay.
yeah, and I think the tool is good, but we have to be careful of what the hypothesis is. What we put into the Excel. Garbage in, garbage out. So you have to be realistic. What you think the market condition is, and
Right.
and your realistic income in order to have a good picture of what the figure is. Yeah. That's,
No, this is just an example.
yeah,
You guys can play with it. I'm gonna send
right.
it out. It's not gonna be locked. You guys can put your own,
Yeah.
characters in there, and it'll flow. So I'll send this out to everybody once it's fine tuned. One thing I do want to add to all the agents, if there's anything that you want to be have a learning session or a class on, please feel free to contact me or Michelle or Peter. Let us know what you want us to brush up on, or what kind of document or form you want to be taught on. We're going to start going into all the documents, all the forms. Going to have some other aspects of the meeting other than class, Q&A, open forums. We also encourage all our agents to let us know what we can do better for you to support you in any aspect, not just learning, even motivational, or any type of tools that we can support you with, or even, things that you want to see changed in our office, or things that we could do better. We're looking to improve. We're here to support you guys. So please, your input is valuable. Let us know. It could be anonymous, or just shoot me an email or call me. Okay. All
Very
right.
good.
All right, guys.
All right. See you guys.
Everybody
week.
have a good weekend, and I'll see you next Friday.
All right. Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Ruben. Have a nice day. Bye,
All
Peter.
right.
Bye-bye. Bye, everybody.